traffic is crazy out there. I'm serious. So this boy, actually it's a dude. This dude on his hoverboard, cuts right in front of the metal craft, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? So the autopilot insists on calling the police bot to figure all of this out. So things take forever and ever. And Annalena, I'm really, really grateful that you took over class here for a second. I'm sorry, I don't mean to bore you with my traffic stories. Let's actually get to where we started. Let's get to where we left off last time. I went to my grandfather's house last weekend and went to his basement, and I dug up something great. You guys seen this? Who knows what this is? Anyone?
iPad.
An iPad, right. Where did you see one? At a museum? Someone? Anyway, so this is so cool. A long time ago, this was the latest thing in technology. People loved it. It was brand new. People would actually stand in front of stores for hours at a time to buy this thing. You would control it with your finger, imagine, not with your mind. Isn't it crazy? But anyway, great thing of memorabilia, and just a starter really for our session today. So briefly, great inventors of modern times. Come on folks, we've gone through this a million times. Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, Gottlieb Daimler, and Steve Jobs, thank you very much. Died about 100 years ago, actually 100 years ago to this day. Thank you. So, our topic, life at the beginning of the 21st century. What do we call stuff, from, well, let's really say 100 years ago, 2011. What was life like back then? Anyone over there? Yes, correct. People did not grow very old. They died when they were less than 100, younger than 100 years. Strange, but that's how it actually was. Anything else? It's October, I'm sweating to death. But back then, you actually need to wear a sweater when you went outside, it's much warmer. You didn't need to wear sunscreen. Anything else? Yes, over there. Fossil fuels. Yes, fossil fuels, People used a ton of energy back then. Seriously, a ton of energy. They actually burned stuff. They burned oil. Anyone recall oil? Anyway. But that's still not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the education system at the beginning of the 21st century. Now, a couple of things, things would be different back then. A couple of things about the education system back then. Oh, there, last row. Yes, you're right. Well, it was boring. School was boring. Kids they were tired in class. School back then was a very different place than what it is today, There were only teachers, for instance, or for the most part, only teachers. Only one thing, they're not like all the people who are here today, Actually, we're sitting in this historic lecture hall right now. That's what a lot of classrooms look like. Very different. Anything else? Education, 21st century. A little too much partying going on over there.
Teachers weren't very good at teaching.
Teachers weren't very good at teaching. That's right. And guess what? Well, teachers weren't very good at teaching. I'm not sure whether we can judge this, but I can tell you one thing. Teaching was not a very popular profession. It is. And I know that some of you folks are really interested in going into teaching, and it's tough. It's really, really tough. I went through the whole process, the application process and the selection process. But and today, we consider it completely normal that the best and the brightest and the most motivated and hardworking, keep working hard, are going into teaching. But 100 years ago, it was not a very popular profession. It was well paid, but it was not that popular. It didn't have very high prestige. I'm sorry, what was your question? What people wanted to do instead? Well, I don't know, they studied, folks studied business or science and so on. Some of them would go into management consulting. I'm not even sure what that is and why people would go into this. Another profession that was popular was, I need to elaborate on this a little bit, investment banking. There were still publicly traded banks in 2000. That was before the great financial meltdown of 2012. Before they were state-owned. Anyway, but that, we'll have a separate session on that one. Most important point here, folks. Education at the beginning of the 21st century. Yes, I like your point. Back then, a student's family background really had a huge impact on, huge effect on his or her opportunity to succeed in the system. I know this sounds weird to you, it sounds weird to me, but 100 years ago, that's how things worked, Like whether your parents were rich or poor, whether they had attended university or just high school or were even dropouts, even what part of the country they lived in, whether they were of Turkish descent, of German descent, of wherever they were from, it made a difference. It really made a difference in the kind of opportunities that you encountered in life. I know this sounds appalling to you guys, it sounds appalling to me, but back then it was considered normal. Normal. Like people did not necessarily like it, but that's just how they sort of dealt with it. Anyway, 2011, what else? Yes, the year of the Great Revolution. You guys are good students, Great Revolution started. People went to the street. Call this the Arab Spring, Occupy Wall Street. You read it on your e-readers last week. And then there was also the beginning of what later was called, I'm sorry, is there a party week going on this week? You guys all seem really, really tired. All right, the Great Education Revolution. Thank you, Education Revolution, or as some historians call it, the Hidden Revolution, right? Because it started out really small with covert operations. But what began to change was the mindset of a young generation that actually said, we're not going to accept this anymore. We're not going to tolerate this anymore, that there's so much injustice built into the system, that your student's background will actually determine his or her opportunities to succeed in school and later on in life. And much of it came from there, and as you know, some of our most respected leaders today, be it in government, business, actually taught at some point or another. Well, anyway, let's get to your student projects. So if you guys could get out your readers again. I want you guys to do interviews, to do student project with your grandparents or great-grandparents. I know most of them are still alive. And I would like you to ask them, grandma, grandpa, great-grandma, great-grandpa, where were you when the education revolution started, and where were you when it took off? Were you involved? Were you part of it? Or were you standing on the sidelines? And collect those stories, and we're going to be talking about this. All right, any questions on this? No? All right, well then, let's get to work. Obviously, I do not know, I have absolutely no idea what a history lesson is going to look like 100 years from now. I do not know what schools are going to look like, even though I'm curious. I don't know, who will be teaching, who will be the personnel in schools, standing in front of students, interacting with students, maybe not even in front of students. I'm not sure what kind of materials they will use, what kind of technology. I do not know all of this. But what I do know is how I would like our generation to be remembered. And I would like our generation to be remembered as a generation that actually did start something that generations after us might consider an education revolution or a hidden revolution or whatever they would call it. A generation of folks, of young folks, who saw the problems and who became active and who were sick and tired of just sitting on the sidelines and watching the injustice that was going on. But folks who actually said, we can get involved here, and we actually have to change certain things. I strongly believe that these days that we're living through right now are actually a time of great opportunity. This has to do with technology, with what some people call megatrends. stuff that's going on, the way we talk to each other, the way we interact with each other, the problems that we begin to understand. It's a time for great opportunity because there's already so much happening and there are so many offers out there for folks like you, the smart folks, folks who care, to get involved in the system. And today is, I think, a great opportunity to learn about these different ways to become involved and to find your way to change the system. And we just learned that we need to become hackers, right? And be part of the system and then maybe even change it from within. A few years back, I also started an initiative called Teach First Deutschland. Teach First Deutschland recruits outstanding university graduates from all disciplines to assume a 2-year teaching fellowship in some of the most challenging schools in this country. And what they do is they work with the students, our fellows work with the students, but they also learn from the students. They really want to advance the students while they're in school. And I expect our fellows, after they've completed this fellowship and after they've learned about the system, to go on and be motivated and have the knowledge and the expertise and speak the language so they can actually change the system afterwards. Because in a way, they're also hackers within the system. This is one way to get involved. And I'm not sure whether that is your way to get involved. But again, I strongly want to invite you, I actually want to encourage you to look for ways to get involved, because it is really up to us of where we take this education system. Now I need to complete this with a word of warning, because getting yourself involved in education is a dangerous path, and I speak from experience. You will encounter setbacks, disappointments, failure, lots of failure. I fail each and every week. And there will be scars. If you want to live a convenient life, that might not be the way to go. However, I can also tell you, and assure you, that being involved in education, not just as an analyst, but actually as somebody, as a practitioner who does stuff, can be one of the most rewarding experiences because of the people you meet, because of the challenges you encounter, the failures that you encounter, and what you learn from them. And as I said, I can only encourage you to do that. So, final question for you guys. What are you going to tell your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren when they approach you with their student project and ask, where were you when the education revolution started? Were you involved? Were you part of it? Were you standing on the sidelines? Thank you very much.